everyone, it's Laura, and I am here to talk about the Chestnut Springs series. Started with Flawless, and I really liked this book. It follows Summer and Rhett as her love interest, and he is a bull rider. And I will be honest with you, going into this book, I didn't know how invested I could be in a bull rider. That sphere of entertainment has never interested me before, but I loved Rhett. And I loved Summer. I loved how spunky she was, how strong-willed. She gave as good as she got, and I loved her relationship with her father. I always get ahead of myself. I should probably talk more about what this is in case you haven't read it, or if, like me, you just saw it on a lot of people's shelves and wanted to know what it was about and if it's good. I basically picked it up, I picked this up at Barnes & Noble, and they had a sticker for buy one, get one, 50% off. So I bought the first two, hoping I would like the series. Luckily, it worked out for me. I did. So, but yeah, in case you didn't know, I bought it basically without knowing anything, just seen it on a lot of booktubers' shelves. So this is about Rhett, who is a bull rider, and he got into some problems. Basically, the very first chapter is he was caught on video, so this isn't really a spoiler. He was caught on video saying that he didn't like milk. And he has a lot of sponsors. Where he's from is a lot of, hardworking farming people that are his supporter base. So farmers obviously are not happy that he is dissing milk. And he's losing some corporate sponsorships. And in order to keep the ones that he has, his agent, Kit Hamilton, enlists his daughter, Summer, as basically a glorified babysitter. For the remaining 2 months of his season, until the championships, anywhere he goes, she goes. And so obviously proximity, they start to banter and they fall in love. So that's the basic summary. And again, what I said is I wasn't really expecting to enjoy learning about bull riding or that aspect, and kind of was hoping that the romance would be more overarching and I could get through it. And granted, there isn't necessarily a lot about bull riding, but what there was, I was surprised by how intrigued it made me. So do I think I'm going to go and watch a lot of bull riding videos online? No. But I was surprised by how much I just enjoyed the book, every aspect of the book. I did love the romance. I did love how there's always conflict in romance books, and how Summer was basically fighting it because she was here to do a job. And especially she didn't want to mess anything up because she was working for her father. So she wanted to prove herself to him and anyone who thought that she basically got her position through nepotism. So I could kind of understand her reluctance to give in to any romantic feelings she might have had for Rhett. But I love Rhett. I love his family. Makes me kind of want to go and stay on a ranch somewhere for a vacation. I can't see myself settling there for good, but it did make it really intriguing. So anyway, first book of the series. I loved it. 4.5. And I followed that up immediately by basically putting this book down and immediately picking up Heartless. So Heartless is in the same universe. Rhett, he is one of 4 siblings. He is the youngest boy. He has a younger sister, Violet, who is already married, moved away, has kids. So she's not really involved in this book, in Flawless. But he is the youngest boy. And then this is the eldest brother, Cade. So Cade, he is a single father. He was in the first book, and he was very harsh and seemed very grumpy and terse. And in this book, you kind of understand more why. So he has a 5-year-old boy, Luke, and he is looking for a nanny for the summer, because who he had watching his child before, she's basically gotten too old. She looked after Cade and Rhett and then their other siblings when they were younger. So she can't really keep up with the 5-year-old anymore. So it makes sense. So he's trying to interview nannies, and nobody stacks up to what he wants, basically. He wants an old lady that's basically going to be Mary Poppins, you know, but it's a small town, and the Eaton boys are basically kind of like little royalty in town. So, of course, all of the eligible women are going to apply for the position because they don't care about the kid Luke. They care about Cade, and they want to start a romance with him. So he's looking for older ladies, but it's not going well. So Summer from the first book, her best friend Willa, Summer is basically like, hey, I have someone who could do it. And he basically said, well, is she interested? Would she be interested in a romance with me? And Summer's like, heck no. So Cade's open to that. But the first time he sees her, he doesn't know it's Willa. He's in town at a coffee shop, and Willa's in front of him. He's blown away by how beautiful she is. She reaches in her purse to get money to pay for her coffee, and panties fall out. And so he's kind of blown away by the brazenness and craziness of the situation. So when he goes back home and he meets the lady again, and Summer says, hey, this is my friend Willa, the one I was telling you about, he says, absolutely not. No. But it turns out that Willa is basically just what the family needs. His son gets along magnificently with Willa, and then their romance is very cute. And I really enjoyed it that he is, I believe, 38 and Willa is like 25. So there's an age gap. But I love how it's handled, because it's not handled as kind of like a fetish or a thing. It is them genuinely falling in love with each other and appreciating each other for what they bring to the table. And the reticence on each of their parts is basically, Willa, if anything, is more all in than Cade, because Cade recognizes that she's still young enough that she might not want this whole thing of settling down with a pre-made family, with a man and a 5-year-old in a house in the country in the middle of nowhere, basically on a ranch, when she's always been a city girl, you know? And it's not because he doesn't like her or he doesn't trust her. He just doesn't want her to, down the line, resent him for, you know, settling down before she was ready. So that's understandable, and it's handled well, and it's not so much of like, you know, how tacky some other age gap romances could be. So I really like this. I also give it 4.5. If I had to choose, I would definitely rate Flawless above this, but I still enjoyed it. I would say it at 4.5, just in a different way. And then the third book in the series that I've read is Powerless. And this one, I was actually really eager to read. I gave in, and I went to Barnes & Noble, and I bought the remaining 3 of the series just because I liked the first 2 so much. And my book buying ban, or the rules that I had set up about only buying a book when I had read 3 physical books, not going so great so far. I was so eager that I had told myself I would buy it at the end of the week after I'd finished Heartless, and I couldn't wait, so I went out on a Wednesday night to Barnes & Noble. I got the remaining 3, but I needed to know about Jasper, because this book is about Jasper and Sloane. Now, Jasper, he was in the first 2 books, and he is basically the unofficial Eaton brother. He was friends with the middle brother, Beau, who I haven't mentioned yet. His book is the last of the 5. But Jasper, basically, all that you knew is he had something traumatic happen in his background, and he was basically taken in by the Eaton family. And so everyone in the first 2 books basically call him that he's an Eaton boy, that he's, you know, their brother, and just suck it up. Well, the thing is that the Eaton brothers, their cousin, is Sloane, and their mother's sister is the mother of Sloane. So that's how they are. So when they dare, Jasper is all about calling the Eaton boys and Violet his brothers and sister. But if they dare say that he has Sloane as a cousin, he is like, no, she's not my cousin, no. And that's because he has romantic feelings for her. But because of his past, he thinks he doesn't deserve to be with someone like Sloane. So he settles for being her friend. Sloane, on the other hand, she comes from a wealthy family. So there's high expectations that have been foisted upon her. She currently is a prima ballerina. She is in a company in the city. And she's basically always loved Jasper. Always. She's always had feelings for him. A lot of people knew about it when she was younger, made fun of her. So she's learned how to hide her feelings. And she's done a pretty good job of it as she got older. But unfortunately, that has made her less happy, because if you continue to love him, how can you be happy with whatever happens? And so she's basically starts off the book that she's going to get married. You find that out in the second book. And turns out she's going to be marrying kind of a jerk. But this is who her father wants her to marry. So she's like, might as well, because, I can't have the man that I want, then might as well marry him. And turns out that's not going to happen. So I won't explain exactly how that happens, what goes down. But anyway, she basically pulls a runaway bride with Jasper. And then throughout the book, you learn more about Jasper's past. The mystery was solved. I know what happened. It is very tragic and sad. I could understand his hesitance in forming a relationship with Sloane. And Sloane has to kind of do some growing as a person, find her backbone, and open her eyes to how the world is, basically. But they bring out the best in each other, and I found it a very good story. I liked it, and it was very enjoyable. And I think that they were almost kind of each other's safe place through all of the hardships that they have to go through and the hard truths that they have to accept, that they could deal with them as well as they did because they had the other to lean on. So I got another 4.5. I'm probably kind of like a broken record, but I really enjoyed it. And I was worried because, I used to do dance, so the ballerina thing, I wasn't worried about that. Jasper is a professional hockey player. He's been to the Olympics for Canada and everything. There's not a lot of stuff. I mean, they mention him having games on the team, but they don't actually go into it. There was far more bull riding than there was anything with hockey. So, if anything, I almost wish that there was more hockey and ballet stuff. But it didn't need it. So it was just basically kind of about them and figuring their stuff out. And I really enjoyed the book. So those are my thoughts on the first 3 books. And I will hopefully read the other 2 soon. So over the next month or so, I'll probably read both of those because I want to savor them. I wanted to draw the series out, but I'm very interested in the next 2. So the next one is actually with Theo, who is the young bull rider that Rhett from the first book is kind of a mentor to, and then Winter, which is also from the first book, Summer's half-sister. But anyway, it's their romance, and Winter is definitely a frosty character, but through each book, when you see little snippets of her, she isn't as harsh as she seems in the first book. So I am really curious to see her as an actual main character. So I do look forward to the 4th book. And then the 5th book is with Bo, the remaining Eaton brother, who's the middle one, who's best friends with Jasper. Throughout these other books, he's been gone on special missions, just popping in. He's very charming and likes to start trouble, and he's basically like the prankster brother. So he pops in through different books to stir the pot, and then he's off on another special mission. So I'll be curious to actually see him his point of view and what we learn more about him as well. Hi everyone, it's Laura, and I'm here to update after having read the 4th book in the Chestnut Springs series of Heartless. And this is a story of Summer's sister Winter, and half-sister, and Theo Silva, who is Rhett's protege and friend. And before I start, I realized after rewatching the clips of me covering the first 3 that I didn't really mention the spice level, which I know is really quite important to some people. These are spicy. I don't know, I haven't really thought about how to like rate them or anything, but it is open door. It's not fade to black or anything. They are explicit. I don't necessarily think that they're overdone like some books might be. It doesn't necessarily feel like they're in there just to be in there, but there are quite a lot. It's not just like one scene at the end or anything. And there's, yeah, dirty talk, and that's probably the only part that I'm not a huge fan of, is that everyone has their own quirks and preferences, and I am trying to figure out how to say this in a YouTube friendly way, but as a female, I for one don't like using the P word for the lady bits, and it's one thing even when you're in like the male perspective to have them say that, but in all the books the females use it too, and I don't know, that just irks me a little. But that's, I think, more of just a personal thing. I don't mind the C word, where I know lots of people are offended by that, so take that as you will. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, that there are explicit sex scenes, and there are more than one, so it's not just at the end when they finally get together. So a lot of them are explicit and dirty, and it's not one of these loving, sweet, they embraced and flowery words that you might get in some more PG romances. But I still really like all of these books. Despite that, this is the book so far that I've liked the least out of the 4 I've read, which makes me sad, because I was really eager almost to get a redemption arc for Winter, because in the first book, when you see it from Summer's perspective, Winter is harsh and cold, and you kind of feel like she's against Summer and that she's not a great person. So I was fully on board for the redemption arc of Winter in this book. And Theo, I mean, I got glimpses of him in previous ones, but trying to be very careful not to spoil too much. But on the back, I did read, basically this book is very different from the others in that this starts off with a scene that was in the Jasper and Sloane book, and where they kind of meet and confront each other, and then they basically have a one-night stand, and Theo seems interested in more, but Winter is trying to break free of her toxic marriage and kind of figure out what she wants from life. And so she just wants it to be a one-night stand. And then she gets pregnant. So there's that. And then, to be as vague as possible, there's a situation that keeps them apart for a while. And then it's basically them coming together, figuring out if they can make this work and if they can truly be a family together with their child in them. And I like the switch up in the plot. I do feel for both of the characters with the troubles that they go through. My main problem is that it felt just more formulaic in certain ways in this book, because one of the biggest complaints in in movies and other books and TV shows with romance plots is the miscommunication trope. And like, if they just sat down and talked about it. And this book kind of falls into that more, at least in my opinion, than the other ones, because it's one of those things where neither of them feel worthy of each other necessarily. I mean, like Theo, he's a bull rider, and Winter, she gives off this like ice queen, rich girl aura, and I mean, she's a doctor, and he's a bull rider who he admits that he didn't even go to college. Like, why would she settle for him? And then Winter, from her childhood and her family dynamics, and then her husband and that relationship, she's having a hard time trusting people. And so, I mean, I can understand where they're coming from. And so when Theo comes with like, you know, sweet words, she doesn't want to buy into that right away. I understand that. But when Theo is just so sweet and he doesn't do anything to really earn her distrust, it's one of those things where like I'm kind of banging my head on the table at Winter some of the time. And it's like she takes every single thing he does the wrong way sometimes. Like at one point, it doesn't really spoil anything, but at one point they're working out together in a gym, and he pulls her shirt down that had started to ride up, and he's just like, oh, I don't want her, you know, any of the guys here to look at her. And then she takes it as, oh, he doesn't want to look at me, I must be disgusting. And it's just one of those things that just irks me. And when it happens not once, not twice, but over and over and over again, it got a little frustrating. That being said, I still really like certain aspects of it. Like I said, I like the change up with kind of creating a family dynamic there. I mean, they did that in Cade and Willa, but it's different, obviously, because Willa isn't the actual biological parent of Luke, and you know, this is Winter and Theo are the biological parents of their child. So there's that. And then I honestly love Theo though. If I had to choose one man out of the 4 books I've read so far, Theo would be my guy. I would want a real life Theo in my life because Theo is so sweet and so gentle and so giving, and he just is amazing. So I love Theo. I also don't like part of this book in that it makes me think less of Rhett, which kind of disappoints me because I love Rhett in the first book, and this book, there's a few times, I mean, he doesn't have a big part in it, but there's a few parts where it just bugs me. I mean, one of them is obviously when people find out about Rhett and Winter, Rhett makes some comment that seems very disparaging against Winter, and he later claims he didn't mean it that way, but that's not how anyone that was there for that comment took it, and that's not how I as a reader took it when he first said it. And I mean, Summer is trying so hard to reconnect with her sister, and it kind of, you know, Winter has made some comment that, you know, Rhett holds grudges better than Summer, and I understand that, but if you could just shut his mouth, because it feels like he kind of undid some of the character work that he did during his book. And then the other thing that really annoyed the heck out of me is that he, in his book, was so mad that people continued to call him like a lady killer and a player because he sowed his wild oats when he was younger in the circuit. And he hasn't done that in years, and he's cleaned up his act, and he's ready to settle down, and he wants one woman. And then he does the same thing to Theo. He keeps making jabs at Theo and you know, and can't recognize the change that Theo's gone through over the last few years. And that kind of just, the hypocrisy bothers me. And I know that certain people are like that, but you know, at the end of his book, I was like, Rhett should know better at this point. So I don't know. I'm kind of all over the place. Like, generally, I still really like this book. My rating is 4 stars, but I don't like it as much as the other books, despite it having my favorite male lead so far. But yeah, just more nuanced opinions from this book. But overall, I still really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. So that's it for right now. I just only have one book left to read, and it's Beau. I will come back once I've read that. I'm coming to you finally having finished the last in the Chestnut Springs series with Heartless. It actually surprised me how long of a break it took, since I enjoyed the other books so much. But I spent, I think, over a month before reading this last one, because honestly, after seeing, this book is about Beau and Bailey Jensen, and after seeing Beau in the last book, I wasn't so interested in his story, but I did finally pick it up because I had the itch to complete the series, and I was overall more pleasantly surprised than I anticipated myself to be. So this story is about the Middle Eaton brother, Beau, the super soldier that was kind of special forces in the Canadian military. And something happened in the 4th book, so I don't really know if it's so much of a spoiler, but so in this book, he is suffering, he's recovering from medical treatments, and he's been discharged from the military, and he has some PTSD. And he was kind of a jerk in the 4th book when we saw him, and so that did not make me eager to be in his head at all. And then I was also worried because he's partnered up with Bailey Jensen, who is a character that we've seen kind of on the periphery of the other stories. So basically in Chestnut Springs, the Eaton family, other people kind of call them like the royalty of the town, where they can do no wrong. All the Eaton boys are looked upon favorably. And then just like there's the royalty, there's basically kind of the trash, which is the Jensen family. The Jensen family is a father, 2 sons, and a daughter. And all of the men are basically criminals, and one of the brothers seems kind of be a drug addict. They get into all petty crimes. The father at the start of this book is in prison currently. They're in and out. Bailey Jensen, I don't know, they don't really clarify. I assume she's the youngest. They don't really clarify exact birth order, but they kind of treat her like the youngest, and she seems the youngest. And she has tried to overcome the family reputation a lot, and she's trying to keep her head down and work hard. And I was a little nervous because obviously these books take place over some time. And so even in this one, you see some of the other couples develop a little and, you know, get married and stuff like that. But I was worried because the first time I saw Bailey, she was a bartender at a bar the characters go to, and I believe she was 18 when we first saw her. And Beau starts off this, and he's 35. Now, I'm not fully against age gap relationships, but I do kind of give them the side eye off the bat. But even though the other 4 novels have some age gaps, which, you know, I think it was Summer, it's been forever since I read them, but I think Summer was like 26, and then Rhett was 33 or something. Kate and Willa was 26 to, I want to say, like 38. Sloane, Jasper, they're not that big of an age gap. I don't remember specifics. I know Jasper's older. And then in Theo and Winter, I believe it was only a 2-year. I believe Winter was 28 and Theo was 26. So it's not that big. Kate and Willa are. But at the same time, it didn't bother me a lot because Summer and Willa, which were kind of the biggest age gaps of the previous 4 books, they were still mid-20s. They had kind of established themselves in life and, you know, lived on their own, or, you know, that type of thing. And they were full-formed adults. And so I was really nervous before I knew the exact time frame of Bailey being 18, no matter what Beau's age might be. Thankfully, she's 22. That still gave me a little, I don't know. I was a little anxious going into that, because even though that's better than 18 by a long shot in my mind, I still remember what I was like at 22 and how naive and optimistic and I don't know. There's just a power dynamic in an age gap where the youngest one is still that young, I think. But the book did a pretty good job of easing my mind on it, though, because basically Bailey's plan is to save up money so she can get out of this town and go to college and get a job and just escape basically the Jensen name and the infamy of her family. And the more you're in her mindset, the more you see that what I was worried about of her naivety or not being an adult, it's kind of not applicable to her, because she's been doing her best to prove herself. She's worked these jobs, and she lives in a trailer on her family property, but she's an independent person living by herself on a trailer she bought. It later comes out that she's basically paying the mortgage on her family home. Like, so she is a responsible adult that, based on how she's been treated her entire life and the infamy of her family, any rose-colored glasses were definitely removed, and she had to grow up faster than a normal 22-year-old. So that made it more believable to me and less creepy. And then Beau, he is basically doesn't know how to readjust to civilian life, because he always promised that he would retire soon and come back and help out the family at the farm, but he really had no intention of doing that. And now that that's basically his only option, he hates the farm. But he feels like he owes it to his family, and he's just kind of a massive jerk to everyone. And he's just been a soldier through and through, always had another mission, always had game plans, and now he's kind of floundering. And so when Bailey made some offhand comment about how because he says like, well, why don't you get another job? And she says, no one will hire me, and no one will rent out when he finds she's still living, you know, in a trailer on her family home. Well, why? Because no one will lend her money or rent to her in town. Like, all these things that, while Beau and the Eaton family, and even in kind of in the perspective we've seen in the other books, where Chestnut Springs seems like a very nice place overall and kind of quaint and small town, for Bailey it's kind of been a living hell. And so he's just like, I don't think it's as bad as you say it is. And that, well, what if we pretend to be engaged, and that way, you know, maybe that will lift you out of your family's infamy, and my name, by being a future Eaton, you'll be able to save up money faster to pursue your dreams. So she thinks it over and was just like, is he being truthful? Is this odd? Like, what is he having? Like, what does he get out of this deal? And but she agrees to it, so they get fake engaged. And that's kind of fake dating, fake engagement. I like that type of stuff. And I was curious what route they would go, if it kind of blow up and everyone finds out that it's fake, or if they just went the route of like, oh, they catch feelings and then it just kind of eases into a real relationship under the radar of everybody else. I'm not going to spoil which route it goes, but I was curious about that. But then, you know, for Bo, helping Bailey kind of becomes his new project and being protective of her. And that kind of rubbed me a little the wrong way, because I like men who are supportive. I don't like men who are overbearing. And he kind of towed the line a few times. But I mean, with regards to what was happening and like her family and some of the other townspeople, I did understand his reaction to some of the things, but it was one of those things that was a little iffy to me. And then the one thing I decidedly did not like, though, is that Bailey is a virgin in this, and she rightfully didn't want to become town fodder and just, you know, have sex with anybody, because she knew people were probably going to call her nasty names about it. But she's a young, healthy woman, and she doesn't fantasize about her first time or anything like a lot of idealistic young girls might, or anything like that. But then Bo, when he finds out, he gets all weird about it and how he's putting more of an emotional significance on it. And she says at one point, you know, obviously the whole thing is they do get closer and real feelings get involved and all that. She tells him numerous times that she just wants to have sex with him. And he's like, not like this. No. Your first time has to be special. Why would it be with me? I'm too old for you. And that just pisses me off with women and their own right to their body and their feelings and not being heard. And it just, hi. And it just rubbed me the wrong way, because I could understand, and I fully am on board if it was one of those tropes that you see in movies or something where she got drunk or she was really emotional and she had her crying because of some encounter, and you don't take advantage of someone when they're in a state like that, like super emotional or whatever. But it's just a normal Thursday night and she says she wants to have sex, and he's been one of the nicest people ever to her and he says no. And I understand he has the right to refuse too, but since we're in his mindset in some of these chapters, just seeing how he is putting her virginity on a pedestal, even though she doesn't think it's anything special like that, it just kind of annoyed the crap out of me. So that was a major downgrade for me, because that annoyed me a lot, because I don't know. I think too much emphasis is put on women and their virginity in a lot of media, and it just aggravates me a little. But overall, all my fears about Bo and not liking him as a character in the fourth book and not being eager to see this, I did overall like the entire plot and how it played out, and the romance between the two of them, and Bo figuring out what he wants from life now that he's out of the military and what path he's going to do, and not to wrap his entire personality around being protective of Bailey, and then Bailey basically trying to step out from under the infamy of her family name and truly become her own person, because she's basically survived so far by keeping her head down and being as polite as possible and brushing off any stuff that the townspeople did. And they made snarky comments, they've been rude to her, they've treated her like she's non-existent or not there. Obviously, like previously, they don't give her jobs, they won't run to her. Like, she's been treated like garbage, and she just kind of like takes it on the chin and like says thank you and keeps on going. So you finally see her kind of become the person that she is in reality, which is kind of snarky and playful and a vibrant woman. And so I really liked that journey for her. And overall, I would give this book a 4, because I didn't like it as much as some of the other books, and I did have that real issue with the virginity thing, but and Bo wasn't my favorite of the Eaton boys by far, but I really liked Bailey, and I did like seeing the interaction between the two of them. So 4 stars. And with that, I have now officially finished the Chestnut Springs series, and overall I would really recommend it to anyone that would be interested. I really did like these books overall, and some of them were definitely more my favorites than others, but overall I'm very pleased to have read these, and I will definitely look forward to reading more of Elsie Silver's work. I know Wild Love, the first book in her next series, didn't get as much love, but I haven't heard anything yet about the second book of the series, but I still probably give it a shot at this point because I did really enjoy this one. That's all for this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.